Well, the St. Louis Blues are officially their season is officially over. They've been eliminated from the Stanley Cup Playoffs, which means the offseason has begun. So what will the Blues try to accomplish this summer? What were some of the notable things said by Doug Armstrong in the end of season press conference that they had just last week? Will they sign any free agents, any UFAs, or maybe even do another offer sheets move, RFAs? Will certain players be extended, namely Holloway and Broberg? Will there be any players traded away, like Justin Falk or others? There's a lot to talk about with the upcoming offseason, so we're going to discuss all of that and more today on Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. We go live twice a week. It's John and Alec with you as always. We talk all things Blues, and right now, post playoffs, after an incredible season, that is off season. We're talking off season content today. We'll continue to provide off season content throughout the summer. Usually twice a week is how we tend to schedule, and so if you want to keep up with the off season content as it comes, we'll talk draft, we'll talk free agency, we'll talk trades, breaking news, all kinds of good stuff throughout the summer. And so if you want to stay up to date with all the latest news and everything that's going on in Blues land and join the conversation with us, then be sure to tune in every episode. We live stream here on YouTube, so please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this video. If you're listening on audio, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow, rate, review. We love to read those. We read every single one, and those help us out a ton. And then if you just want to follow us on socials, we're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. So you can follow us over there, engage with us. We post a lot of great stuff, announce when we're going live, special guests, all that good stuff. So be sure to follow us on all those platforms. But it's off season, Alec. Last time we were here, I think we were lamenting the Game 7 loss. So it still stings for sure. But it's time to pivot and think about the summer. There's a lot to break down. So how you feeling about the off season? I mean, because really the interesting thing that came of this season, I mean, not the only interesting thing, of course, but one of the more notable things as we head into the off season is that, as Doug Armstrong said in the end of year press conference, the whatever is over and their window is opening up. And so beyond just being a hope, making the playoffs is now the expectation for this team. So how are you feeling about this team heading into the offseason, and how active do you expect them to be this summer?
Yeah, that is the thing about playing with house money, is that unfortunately in a window you only get to play with house money once, and unfortunately couldn't make um, too much noise with it. But I mean, I think they did a really, really good job and definitely set themselves on the national stage and have set themselves up for a big off season. This could really be something exciting going forward. I think there's a lot of opportunity and room to grow in this roster. And just think, I actually just wrote a piece over on Bleeding Blue about this, but just think, like, at this time last year, where this roster and this organization was, questions about Doug Armstrong. Was he the guy after the Letty extension, the Falk extension, the Krug extension, etc.? They had just announced the Alex Steen succession plan.
Mm-hmm.
What did that even mean? Drew Bannister had just been named head coach, which, shout out, was, I believe, our first episode around this time of year. There is still a lot of question marks on the roster. Guys like Holloway and Broberg, who were they? And then the free agent signings were like the Joe Bros and Kasperi Kapanen and Oscar Sundquist. And just think how many questions there were this time last year and what came of it. And now this is a roster, like you said, with expectations. This is a team with expectations. But there's really a chance to make this a special offseason. And the path seems to be a lot easier than we might have originally thought. So I'm excited. I think they have a chance to really put themselves on the map in terms of being one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and I think they can do it.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Um, as we mentioned in our last episode, like if the beginning of the window opening is taking the President's Trophy winners to 7 game to double OT in Game 7, like future is bright for this team. So I'm really excited to see how they can improve on this season, and continue their momentum through the re whatever as it ends, according to Doug Armstrong. Um, and one of the things that he highlighted in particular is that like they want to improve by around what did he say, like 5% or something
Yep.
each year, something like that. And so I believe the number that he singled out in the press conference was he thinks this team should get to at least 100 points next year. Do you
Yep.
think? I mean, they were at 96 this year. Um, do you expect that that's something that they can accomplish? I mean, that's only 2 more wins, right? And or 4 more overtime losses. So I
Oh,
mean, do you
please,
think
3-2-1
that
point system, please.
that would be the way to go for sure? Um, do you think this is something that they can do? Is get to
Yeah,
like 100 points next year?
yeah. I think 100 points is well within the reasonable bounds of expectation. I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee, um, but I do think that's there's a chance to really reach that threshold. So the 100-point teams in the Central this year, where the Avalanche barely hit it at 102, the Stars shot past it at 106, and then obviously the Jets won the President's Trophy. So that's not like a given of a bar to clear. The Avalanche had to go on this crazy stretch, crazy winning streak down the stretch to get there, and of course, so I mean, I think they can. I don't think it's a guarantee by any means, and I think it'll be really challenging for this team to get there. But I like their odds. If they get 5% better, then yeah, that would put them right around 98, 100, 102 points. Probably not 98, probably closer to 102. And if they can get that 5% better, which I do want to say also that philosophy, this is not the first time we've heard that verbiage and that like idea being repeated.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I remember Doug Armstrong bringing up in previous press conferences, like end of year press conferences, um, is that mentality of every year get 5% better. Doing a re whatever for a hockey team, as Armstrong said in his presser, is like turning a tanker around, is what he said. It's slow, it's bulky, and you're gonna just have to be patient. But seems like they've got the tanker going in the right direction now, and it's gonna start to pick up speed, hopefully. And yeah, I think 100 points is the right benchmark for this team to clear. I don't think it's a given at all that they get there. I think they have to improve on this roster to get to 100 points, and then I think they have to go and execute to do so. But I definitely think they have every opportunity in the world to do so.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think that I'm having trouble finding it right now, but I'm pretty sure the number was that if they had played at the same point pace all year that they played against, or that they played at under Jim Montgomery from the point he took over onward, they would have finished around like 105 points.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been good enough for the third spot in the Central, assuming all the other teams played as well as they did, or thereabouts. And so I agree. Under Jim Montgomery, who's a fantastic regular season head coach, they should definitely be able to crack that 100-point threshold. You're sort of factoring in steps taken from players like Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg, who already took a huge step this year, but hopefully they can take another. You're looking for Zach Bolduc to improve. That was something that Doug Armstrong said, that he'll probably have a shorter leash next year, and so you're looking for him to not make as many mistakes as he did this year. A full year of Jimmy Snuggerud, who looked the part in the playoffs. That's super exciting. So you're factoring in some development from some of your young players who are now sort of your core moving forward. And so I think that paired with full season of Jim Montgomery, it's absolutely within reach. To get there, they'll need to come out of the gate a little better. I've heard that talked about multiple times
Yeah.
here at the beginning of the offseason. It's just coming out of the gate better. That's something that Jim Montgomery said in the end of year press conference. He said they're looking well, or they're looking to start well from game one of the season, build upon that all year rather than chasing those that did all year. So like you look at Winnipeg getting off to the hot start that they did. You look at the Capitals, who sort of came out hot and stayed on top. And so like those are the two teams that performed far above pretty much everyone's expectations of them because they got off to a great start. And so that can sort of set the tone for your season. So if they can do that, pair that with, again, full season of Jim Montgomery and steps taken from your young players, 100 points, maybe even more, should be well within reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't so much about 100 points. Just you mentioned Zach Bolduc, one of the guys that has to step up. I want to shout out, and I realize this is something that we should have been doing, but this is the Zach Bolduc episode 76. And I think going forward, I want to try and get a Blues player for every number. Not really sure off the top of my head if that's possible with the numbers that are remaining, but Zach Bolduc is our episode today. Anyways,
man, we already missed Philip Broberg. That's tragic. Although
before he was on the team.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was our draft recap episode. So that would have been way before he joined the team. Oh well. Anyways, let's talk offseason here, because it has begun. So, if the Blues are to get to 100 points, you can't just rely on those things that I mentioned. Right, being like steps taken from your young players, coming out of the gate hot. You can't just assume that's going to happen. You get complacent, you die. Like, right, that's sort of the philosophy around.
Is exactly what
teams.
They say.
Yeah, that's what they say. I mean, probably say it a different way, but if you just assume you'll improve and don't do anything to improve, it's going to bite you probably. So they'll be looking to make some moves this offseason, hopefully, improve the team in some specific ways. So we'll talk about some of that today. I thought it would be important, or thought it would be a good idea to identify a few key dates. The draft this year is on June 27th and June 28th. We're going to have some draft-focused episodes because those are obviously, or the draft is obviously a big part of the offseason. But today we're not going to be talking draft, but we will get some pretty good draft coverage. We'll have some special guests on to talk about that as well. Today we're talking more other moves. Like we'll talk a little bit about free agency. We'll talk about trades. We'll talk about extensions as well. Another important date is that free agency sort of starting line. July 1st is when free agency starts. So we'll obviously continue to talk about all those things throughout the summer. But why don't we start with some Blues players specifically, guys that are already on the team or were this past season. How do you want to take this? Do you want to just start with the forward group and sort of work our way? Forward, defense, goalies, or other way around? How do you want to take this, Alec?
The way it sits in my head is kind of the timing of everything in terms of like future on the team. So like pending UFAs, then RFAs, and then like guys who are locked up, but then there's still a discussion about what's going to happen with them.
Do you want to go in reverse order? Because I think it gets more interesting the more we get into the murky waters of UFA.
Sure. Let's do it.
To start out with, there are a few players whose contracts aren't up this year, but their contracts change in some way. And so the big ones are Robert Thomas, who a full no trade clause kicks in July 1st. Not that you're going to try to deal Robert Thomas before then. Like, I think we can just go ahead and say that's not going to happen. But
or ever. Yeah.
Or ever. Yeah, he's like going to be an all-time great St. Louis Blue. So he is already in some pretty impressive company when you look at the stats he's put up over his Blues career so far. But anyway, his full no-trade clause kicks in July 1st, along with Jordan Kyrou. His full no-trade clause kicks in July 1st as well. Why don't we start the discussion here with Jordan Kyrou? Because as Matt in the chat pointed out, as Matt pointed out, we're getting some like trade Jordan Kyrou narrative again. I think it's really interesting. Like, I think sports fans in general do this. but it's interesting watching it with the Blues over the
Yeah.
years. Like the what's the word for it? It's just like a one player singled out that everyone wants to hate for some reason, and for much of the year this year, that was like Justin Falk. I feel like Jordan Kyrou has been that guy, especially last year. Um, but this is a guy who just played all 82 games for the second consecutive year, just scored 30 plus goals for the third consecutive year, broke 70 points for the third time in his career. I mean, he might not be the star that some of us thought he could be, but he has become such a solid winger and forward for this team. One of the big stories of his season was the development of his game defensively. That's an area where typically and historically um, it hasn't been a strength of his, but this year I think you can say it was, and so he was one of the most valuable players in general on this team, not just forwards, but players in general. I think there's like a clear top four of Thomas, Kyrou, and Broberg and Holloway are sort of the main guys. Um, but Kyrou is like they're all pretty close together. Like Kyrou's value and his contribution this year isn't far off from any of those other three. So I mean, what's your take on the trade Jordan Kyrou narrative? Because I think as you can see pretty plainly, I'm against that personally. But yeah, like what do you think about should the Blues trade Jordan Kyrou? Like what do you think?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that this is just he had not the greatest playoff series, and it's kind of an overreaction, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I think that's the growth we've seen from Kyrou over the years has been truly like not all hockey players ever reach not even that kind of ceiling, just get that kind of growth, and he's only getting better. He's about to enter the prime of his hockey career, as identified by Army,
Hmm.
and so there's a chance that he gets even better. I mean, he's been the team's leading goal scorer for years now, showing some real assist playmaking ability, and then yeah, his stalwart defensively as a on the second line with Shen this year had just a phenomenal two-way season, 200-foot game, absolutely incredible. His contract, totally agree, Matt, is going to look like an absolute steal, and kind of if you really think about it, is kind of already there for $8 million for like what you're paying that versus
Yeah.
how Buchnevich just got paid that. I would, if I had to choose between the two, which I don't want to, I would take Kyrou 11 out of 10 times. No offense to Pavel, but I think Jordan Kyrou is one of the young stars of this team going forward, and maybe he's not going to be this first line Jake Gensel player that I thought he could be, who could put up 40 plus in a season without blinking, but he can be a really really solid player. And I think another thing that doesn't really get talked about in terms of his struggles in the playoffs this season was just how good he was with Dylan Holloway and
Hmm.
how much he missed playing with his line mate. If Kyrou and Holloway had been cooking against the Jets, I mean, first of all, unfortunately, I think we'd still be seeing playoff hockey. But I think that this narrative would be completely abolished. And sure, I could see an argument saying, well, if he needs to rely on another player to be good, then why does that make him a good player worth keeping around? And to that, I would say, well, I sure hope that you don't think Dylan Holloway's going anywhere either. I mean, that's a young player that we hope is going to be on the team for years and years to come. You're saying you don't want to watch Kyrou and Holloway on a line together for the next 6 years? Like, that's just good roster building. So I think it's ridiculous. I mean, the only reason that I think his reason for being traded at all would be the player you're getting in return. If Kyrie can essentially equate the value of like 2 first round picks, maybe, then maybe you can swing like a true star winger with upside. But you know how we saw this team gel together down the stretch. I don't even know that like elite offense was necessarily the issue that we were looking for. And sure, maybe that's something we can debate on future episodes. But like Kyrou's value has to be to another team equivalent to basically like Tage Thompson. for this to be worthwhile for doing. Maybe it is, and sure, maybe you get a package that just blows you away. Like if you can give Kyrie for Quinn Hughes, okay, like all right, you win. Adam Fox, sure. Like Brady Kachuk and pieces, if that can happen, all right, that's a different conversation. But those kind of trades don't really happen. Um, and
Mhm.
that unless this is like franchise hockey manager, which it isn't. So I think that the trade Kyrie talks are ridiculous and will probably die out if not by that July 1st mark, if not before.
Yeah, agreed. And with the salary cap going up, as you pointed out, that $8 million a year contract is only going to look it's only going to look better.
It
As
already
you and
does. Like
yeah, and it already does because he's your he's your team leader in goals. I mean, he just scored 36 this year. That's not nothing. Like that's not something to sneeze at. I mean, he might not be, as you said, the 40 plus, 50 plus goal scorer that we thought maybe he could be. I'm not saying he can't get there, but I think you're probably expecting around this. I mean, he's probably entering his prime, maybe a little bit more if he improves a little bit. Um, but it's not going to be most likely something more, like a lot more than this, and that's okay. Like that's worth $8 million a year, especially if, as he showed this year, he is more of a two way player, more of a playmaking player, as you said, like playing with Dylan Holloway. They sort of lifted each other up in a lot of ways. And then, as Mike pointed out in the chat, like this is the big thing. You trade away those 37 goals and those, let's see, 70 points. Like, how are you going to replace that? And it would have to be a great goal scorer, as you said, like one of those guys, or like, or you if you want to make the playoffs and not set your team back, you have to make sure that you are replacing that and then some. Like you still have to improve somewhere. And even if Kyrou is a depth scorer, that's a valuable piece. And he's not a depth scorer. He's like he's sort of between like high scoring and sort of secondary scoring. He's sort of in that gray area
I would say he's a great tier 2 skater. He's not
for
a Matthew
sure.
Kachuk, but he is absolutely on the caliber of a great tier 2 forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are players that you have to have on your team if you want to have success in both the regular season and the playoffs. You can't just ride on the back of one elite goal scorer. You need to uh, build around your stars and your elite players. Um, Hopefully, fingers crossed, Jordan Kyrou can still become that. But even if he doesn't, and this is sort of where he's at for the bulk of sort of like the rest of his prime, like I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with paying him. Not that I'm paying him, but I'm okay with the Blues paying him $8 million a year to do that. I mean, he is a great player. He is the type of player that you have. Um, he is the type of player that winning teams have, and so I think trading him away is a mistake, especially if you're not getting anything back that's especially if the return isn't like an improvement on what he already provides for you, given where the Blues are at right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's just a narrative that I'm not really willing to entertain all that much. It's sort of
Yep.
tired of it because look what he just did this year. He was a great player for you.
Yep.
Um,
And because it's like the thing is like people say just trade him for Brady Kachuk. Like no, Ottawa just made the playoffs. They're not trading
Brady doesn't want to
away
leave.
Brady Kachuk. Yeah, Brady doesn't want to leave.
Yeah,
And like I know everyone else is high on the St. Louis thing, and sure, like in a world, in an ideal world, maybe that could work. But like, there's so many reasons that that's so just wrong and not how sports work. Like he's got a family there, he's got a house there that he's not going to want to have to move from. He's got rapport with his team, with the front office. Like he'd have to restart his hockey career basically. And for a guy who's been paid and is now entering the competitive window for a good Ottawa Senators core, now that they finally got a goaltender, no, like that's not happening. And
yeah,
give me a name
yeah,
that isn't Brady Kachuk, and we'll talk, I guess.
yeah. I just think I don't think we need to belabor that point too much. Jordan Kyrou should stay. He's a great player, and he's someone you build around for sure. Um, let's pivot now to talk about a couple other players whose sort of the terms of their contracts change a little bit. I'll start with like the least likely to leave. Jordan Bennington. He's not going anywhere, I don't think, but his contract had previously had, let's see, an 18 team no trade list. That changes this year. It becomes a 14 team no trade list. So, I mean, that's happening. I don't think there's anything that's gonna. I doubt the Blues are gonna trade Jordan Bennington. He just proved again this playoff chase or playoff run that he's a fantastic goalie. I don't think the Blues are moving on from him.
Not happening.
Next, Braden Shen, the captain. The change in his contract is that his full no trade clause becomes a 15 team no trade list. So that clause is getting modified this summer. I believe probably on July 1st is when that'll happen. Is sort of when the next season starts technically. So, I mean, this one is a little more interesting just because Braden Shen was a hot name around the midseason trade deadline this year. Obviously, the Blues ended up holding on to him, but they were thinking about it. They were sort of considering that idea. They were listening to offers on Braden Shen, considering trading away the captain. Obviously, we're very glad that they didn't. They held on to him and they put together a great run. What do you think of Braden Shen? Like, is he someone you would move this offseason? Because the way I'm thinking about it is that he might not be a great 2C. Obviously, you want to bring in eventually someone who can replace him as 2C, and maybe he can go back to his natural position or something like that. But also, you look at the center market this offseason, it's not great. So, like, I doubt the Blues are going to be outbidding some of the bigger spending teams that are in the market for a center. And so I think for that reason alone, it's probably a better idea to hold on to Braden Shen. And that's not even talking about like everything he brings to this team, this locker room, the leadership he provides, the sort of culture that he has helped create and cultivate here. And plus, he just had a sort of resurgent season. I mean, he was a great player for this team, a great second liner. He scored 18 goals, had 32 assists for 50 points. Great depth option, and obviously a great captain. I mean, the way that the Blues players sort of rallied around him and sort of made it clear that they didn't want him to go anywhere midseason, especially like Ryan Suter, who's been in the league forever and had only been on the Blues half a season, and I believe Doug Armstrong pointed out like he was the one who was sort of pointing out that the Blues players didn't want Braden Shen to go anywhere. So he's another one that I wouldn't be surprised if they listened on or listened to offers on Braden Shen, but not someone that I'm super eager to trade. Even if the return is great, I think the sort of lack of a great center market this year, I don't know, means they should probably hold on to him. But what do you think?
Yeah, I hope I'm not too delayed on your end. I'm getting a little bit of choppiness on mine, but I agree. I don't think I'm on the trade Braden Shen train, but I could see it more with Shen. The fact is that he's just probably not a 2C. Had a great year, like you said, but probably long term you're projecting you want the team to really contend. Braden Shen is not your 2C. Maybe they can get creative and build the roster in other ways, but I feel like that's not going to be the route that they go. I would more be looking to upgrade that 2C position as honestly, like, I guess spoilers for next episode, is honestly my priority one of this offseason. But either way, I think that Shen, like you said, just brings something to this team that is impossible to acquire. You can bring in leaders, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be good leaders for your team.
Mm-hmm.
You can acquire talent, but that doesn't mean that it's going to gel with what you have. And what we know is that Braden Shen gels with what we have and
Mm-hmm.
is someone who has the locker room and is someone who not only that, but like brings the physical edge to this team that's just so fun and is just so
Yeah.
like is a big part of who the St. Louis Blues want to be. And I think that that can't really be understated of how important just the hits and the blocks that this guy is throwing. Was third on the team in hits, uh, behind, of course, Torpro and Walker, who are just human bowling balls essentially. But of forwards was one, two, three, third of in blocks too of forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a sort of intangibles, important player to have on the roster, which I know is a really frustrating thing to hear. But if Braden Shen is your 3C going into next year and still your captain, like when in the big moments, in the big games, he just had so many like crucial goals, whether it be playing strong in front of the net, sort of like a better Jake Neighbors, or scoring on a breakaway, to really put the game out of reach, sort of like a better Jake Neighbors. Um, I really think that Braden Shen is so important to the identity of this team. And, Doug Armstrong talked about the value of identity and more identified that in the fourth WCF line, but still, Braden Shen is such a big identity guy to this team. I personally am pro keep Braden Shen for all of those reasons. I see it, but again, I think it's also trade value for him is just not really going to be that crazy. It's an aging player on a decent cap hit, with still some years of control. So that's going to be, it isn't just like a rental, like a Marchand who, or someone who's like on the back end of his career. Like that's a commitment for another team to acquire too. But yeah, I'm sticking with Shen.
Yeah, and obviously, like, this is something that we've talked about a few times, but just like the value of Braden Shen sort of establishing and cultivating the culture and the team identity. I think where that shows up most for the Blues and their timeline right now is as you're calling up these young players and sort of integrating them into the team, the players that are going to be your future and your core for years to come. Like having Braden Shen around, cultivating that culture allows them to step into the locker room and feel comfortable, feel like a part of the team. He's done a great job. We saw it with Jimmy Snuggerud. Like, again, as I said, he looked the part. He came up and played solid from the get-go, and in the playoffs looked fantastic. He didn't have like a ton of actual point production to show for it, but like that'll come for sure. I'd be more concerned if he looked lost out there, and he didn't at all. He had some really great passes, like looked like a great playmaker out there, which I didn't expect at all. Did have a few goals, or I guess 2 goals in the playoffs, and so looked great. And I think a big part of that is coming into a team where you have a guy like Braden Shen that has helped create the identity and the culture that they have. Young players like that, and they feel comfortable, and it helps them develop like a sense of belonging on the team, helps them enjoy their time on the team, and that helps them stick around too. And so I think I speak for us both when I say that we want Jimmy Snuggerud to stick around, probably long term. See, maybe wait and see, but like if this is just the beginning, then I think things are promising for him. And so having someone like Braden Shen helps convince those guys to stick around, and I think that's really important, particularly in St. Louis. So why don't we pivot now to talk about some defensemen? And this is where I'll bring in a comment from Doug Armstrong. He said, I'm trying to find the quote here. He said in the end of season press conference that they have shored up the top 4 defensemen for now. I thought that was interesting. Obviously, you have Colton Parayko, who's sticking around. Philip Broberg is sticking around. Kim Fowler came in and was a revelation, so he'll stick around. But the other one in the top four was Justin Falk this year. Someone who didn't have a great year. As I said, he's sort of become a player that Blues fans really like to, I guess, I don't know, beat up on or I guess they seem to be giving him a hard time online. I'll just say that. He sort of become the player that Blues fans want to hate and want, off the team and out of St. Louis. And I get that for sure. Like, he's being overpaid. There's no doubt about that. They sort of hitched their wagon to probably the wrong horse with Justin Falk, but like, I don't know. I wasn't as upset with his performance this year and this playoff run as a lot of other people, but Justin Falk, his full no trade clause becomes a 15-team no trade clause this offseason, and so that's an option for the Blues. Is they have a lot to choose from, or a lot more to choose from. Leddy, his full no trade clause becomes a 16-team no trade list. So I mean, he's another one who I think we expected a little bit more from this year. Didn't have a great year. But you're only paying him $4 million, and sort of carved out maybe a third pair role for himself towards the end of the year. I think he sort of cleaned it up a little by the end of the year. So we've got those two contracts sort of changing, and those two players you could have an easier time trading away. But I also wanted to point out, because I don't think we've discussed it yet, Torrey Krug is probably done as a Blue. This sort of wasn't unexpected. Wasn't very surprising to hear, but Doug Armstrong said he didn't expect that Torrey Krug would play again. Said he's trying. He's not given up on a return, but that the surgery that he underwent was very invasive, and it's really difficult to return from something like that. Again, something that we sort of expected, not super surprising, but Torrey Krug probably not going to play again as a Blue. So where do you want to start with this sort of defenseman discussion? I think Falk and Leddy are the big ones, obviously. It sucks for Torrey Krug that he won't be able to make a return. He was another one that Blues fans, like his contract, people were upset with, and that's fine. But obviously you feel for Torrey Krug, the player and the human, and it's tough to hear that he won't be able to return, most likely. But yeah, where do you want to start with these few defensemen here?
I mean, we'll start with Krug, I guess. Just it does suck for him, but he had an okay tenure in St. Louis. Definitely some frustrating moments for sure, but also had some good moments in there too. Thankful for his time, and he got his bag too, so it does kind of, I guess, sting a little bit less. Wishing him the best. Yeah, Falk is I think the operative, or the key web of this defensive puzzle, and it does kind of sound like they like Falk enough to not only keep him around but keep him in the same role that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know. You know what? I'm gonna back up. I'm not gonna talk about Justin Falk. I'm actually gonna talk about Ryan Suter, because I think I'll get to Falk.
Okay.
Trust me, it's all going to work together here. My apologies, but Suter is so interesting because he's going to be 41, 40. Was the oldest player in the NHL last year. So obviously, if he signs, he would still be the oldest player, unless, I don't know, maybe Yager feels like he's got one more year in him or something. But
so he's 40 and like 100 days. So
okay.
Yeah,
so,
he'll be 41 later this year. Or I guess
right.
He'll be 41 next January.
Gotcha. I mean, an old aging player, it's not like you always want a guy like that on your team, but also he was really, really good in his role that he played. And so I think Suter kind of is the key log in this that might determine how the puzzle can be acquired, or how the puzzle can be solved. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself here. I think that Falk and Suter, their decisions are kind of tied together, and that's why I wanted to touch on Suter first, because I think with Suter, I think the decision on Suter will tell you what they think about Justin Falk. I think if they sign Suter back to like a north of 1.5 or so $1 million contract as your sixth defenseman, specifically as your sixth defenseman, I think that signals that they are more than comfortable with Justin Falk as the number 4, keeping him on a pair with Broberg. Because then you still want Tucker to have time, and you still got Kessel, you've got Loof, you've got other options. What would interest me the most, or I guess my ideal scenario, is if they can somehow get Suter on to like a league minimum contract. Like, I don't know if he would take something under $1 million, but maybe 1.1, something like that. League minimum contract to be your seventh defenseman. That's kind of a tricky subject because then you're paying someone to not really play, but it gives more time for these young guys to play. And I think you can then put Justin Falk on your third pair with the Tyler Tucker, or potentially see what Tucker can do on the second pair. But that gives you one more puzzle to go out and acquire, and that gives you more defensive intrigue, I feel like, because the defense did have some really special moments, but with a guy like Cam Fowler entering the last year of his deal, they're going to be looking to probably sign a long-term piece more than just continue to get stopgaps here, or trade for a long-term piece is really more likely. So I'd be interested by that, but I probably think what most likely happens is Falk is still the number 4 guy on your team, and Suter either doesn't get signed or gets signed as your 6th guy. I think if Suter doesn't get signed, that does leave a little bit more open to what they want to do with Falk, but it does still seem like they probably want to keep Falk as that second pair guy, for right or wrong. But what I think is going to happen is it's going to be Falk, Broberg, Suter, Tucker again. What I want to happen is to be Broberg and someone, Suter, Falk, Tucker, with Suter as your 7th. What is probably going to happen is, what if I'm losing my thoughts here. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. But what could happen is no Suter, but Falk is still 4th pair. But that could also be a signal of their trying to acquire other things. But yeah, the puzzle pieces are really interesting. It definitely feels a lot better than like coming into last year, how we felt about the defense, or the year previous, especially with the offensive contributions that these guys are able to put up. But it definitely is something to watch for this team. And I said what I think will happen. So that's what I'm leaning so far.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting way to discuss or sort of talk about the top 4 defensemen. He said they've shored up the top 4D for now. Obviously, they're going to be looking to improve that. But the way I took it is Cam Fowler, Colton Parayko, and Philip Broberg are a solid enough 3 to have in your top 4 that it's okay if it's not rounded out by another fantastic player. You can live with that as long as they're okay, and your third pair is decent as well. I would love for them to bring in a solid guy. Like, the things I would do to have Noah Dobson join the fold and sort of be another young defenseman on this team. He's an RFA this year, so maybe they can pull off another snipe, although I doubt it, with the cap going up. But I think that those other 3 are good enough, especially Broberg and Parayko, and they're gonna have to find some other answers after next season. I mean, Cam Fowler's only got 1 more year left on his contract this upcoming season, and so again, I would love it if they can find some ways to improve their top 4D. But that's sort of the way that I took it. Is currently it's good enough that it's okay if Falk is a little bit defensively liable. He provides something. He's positive on offense, maybe not by a whole lot, but he is. And you can live with that top 4. Is sort of the way I took it. I think it was interesting the way that he phrased it. As I said, yeah, Ryan Suter, I'd be okay with bringing him back I mean, like the contract he had this year was almost entirely performance bonus based, and he I think earned all of them, right? It was
Yeah, oh,
like
for sure.
I
It
think
was like
the
40 or
top
60
bonus
games, and he played like almost 70 games.
I think the top bonus was 60 games in playoffs. And I think when he signed it, we were like, Psh, no way. Like, they're obviously not going to reach that threshold. Um, but they did both of those things. So, yeah, like if you can bring him back on something like that, yeah, seventh pair guy, I wouldn't hate that either. Um, I'd be more interested in finding someone who can stick around longer term. But if you just need a stopgap, as you said, until some of these younger guys can make it up, like a Lindstein or Loof or whoever else, I'm okay with bringing him back. He was solid enough this year defensively that I'd be fine with it. But as I said, I prefer for someone else to join the fold, someone that can stick around long term. Um, but yeah, Justin Falk, I mean, like honestly, yeah, I'd love for him to be moved this offseason. I think that should be a priority for this team. Um, the thing is like other teams aren't gonna like paying Justin Falk $6.5 million just as much as you don't. You know, like you're gonna have to eat some contract for sure. Um, which again wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Um, but like the 15 or the I guess what would it be 17 teams that he would accept a trade to, like most of them probably aren't looking for a Justin Falk if we're being honest. I'd be interested to we should probably discuss this at some point. I'd be interested to think about who would want to take on Justin Falk.
Right.
um, but I think the
Yeah.
market for him is going to be pretty thin, so I agree. I think the most likely outcome is that he sticks around at least for another year or half a season or something like that.
I don't know.
Um,
Maybe he's a part of the Iser plan, and we just don't know it yet.
maybe so. The Iser plan is powerful and mysterious. Um,
It works in unseen ways.
that's right. Uh, let's talk about Nick Leddy a little bit because this is the other guy that we mentioned. Nick Leddy, as I said, his full no trade clause becomes a 16 team no trade list. I mean, defend your man. Like, what do you think they should do with Nick Leddy this summer?
I don't know. Yeah, he had a rough season. He's definitely on the outs. I don't think like with the cap situation and everything, I don't think Nick Leddy would be a guy that's impossible to move at all. Because yeah, he's like you said, going to be playing for $4 million for a year. So that's like nothing nowadays. You know, that is maybe Ryan Suter might get paid. Man, Cam Fowler's on a $4 million year. What the H? Um, Nick Leddy on $4 million, like San Jose would maybe take a salary dump, or Chicago would want him back. I could see that happening, but they probably want to actually let their young defensemen play. But it's just a question of who would take Nick Leddy. There just has not been anything on tape that you can see that makes him worthwhile. That being said, this team traded away Robert Bortuzzo and Scott Perunovich, which, by the way, I'm not letting this go. Everyone, I really shouldn't be getting this worked up, but people were really, really on the, oh, here we go again. St. Louis player leaves, does better somewhere else. Scott Perunovich. Did anyone check in on his stats since his trade? Probably not, right? Because it's Scott Perunovich. Well, let me tell you, in 24 games of the Blues, he had 6 points. The Islanders only played him 11 more games, and after his 3 points and -4 rating, decided, yeah, we're good. And it seems like he is out of the league now. So sorry for the guy, but hey, he made it to the NHL. That's something that only a handful of people in their life can say. Um, and so get off my DMs back. But anyways, about Nick Leddy. Yeah, if you can get someone to take him, I think that's probably for the best. Otherwise, it probably is going to be a buyout. I'm not sure about the contract details for that, but I think at this point, Leddy is probably aware of the situation, and he might go, wherever they can get him. And if they can buy out his contract, I think that's probably what's going to happen. So
Yeah, I guess so. I think let's see. He's got the Puckpedia buyout calculator. If you want to buy out Nick Leddy before next season, he's got $3 million remaining base salary. Um, his age would make him eligible for a 67% buyout multiplier. So you're paying off 2/3 of that contract. So you're just paying him $2 million. Um, would you pay $2 million to have Nick Leddy off of your team? I probably would.
yeah, I probably would.
Um, yeah, and at that point, you're getting a decent discount. And again, I think you do that with the hope that you can bring in some fresh meat or call someone up, someone that's going to be around for long term, because Nick Leddy obviously isn't that piece. Um, yeah, agree with everything there. Do you want to talk about? There's three more things we have to talk about here. We've got Faxa, the UFA. We've got some extension candidates who shall remain nameless, although everyone knows probably who I'm talking about. And then we've got an RFA to talk about. Let's talk RFA first.
Okay.
So this is the only RFA, I believe, for the Blues. Is only remaining RFA this summer is Joel Hofer. He was making like $775,000 this year, but is now an RFA, and so I don't know, like lock him up, right? This is someone who has been a really solid backup goaltender for you. Um, has shown flashes of um, being the type of guy who could potentially take over as a number one in the future, or at the very least can continue to be a solid backup option if you want to bring in a different number one. Um, and you don't like Colton Ellis had a great year. You've got some decent goalies in the system, but I think Joel Hofer's probably still the guy that you want as your backup. So, I mean, you agree, right? Lock him up.
Yeah, yeah, pay the man. We didn't see as much from Hofer this year, but I don't think that really matters. Pay the man. It's so hard to find backup goalies. This could be an offer sheet candidate for other teams who want to
Yeah.
be savvy, and I just think that this is absolutely something that we have to consider in terms of roster building. I know Colton Ellis looks exciting, but even then, he hasn't even signed an ELC yet. So let's not get
Yeah.
ahead of ourselves here. You know what you have in Joe Hofer, who is at minimum a fine enough backup goaltender. Because it's not like he's going to be making Bennington money either. It probably would be,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, between 4, 5, maybe $6 million for 3 years or so, like a 3 for 5. That's super reasonable, I feel like.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
maybe a
And
two
this
for
is
six,
something
2 for 5. I don't
something
know.
interesting that I wouldn't hate that at all. Any of those contract numbers you threw out there. Something interesting that I can't remember where I saw this or heard this, and so unfortunately I can't give credit where it's due to whoever pointed this out. But you look at how Joel Hofer was utilized this year; he got a lot of tough matchups, and I think this is something like while he didn't increase really in the number of matchups or the share of the starts this season, you look at the teams he was playing against. They were playing him against some tougher competition. I think trying to give him a bit of an extra workload in a way without actually increasing his workload. So like that's kind of really a smart play by them. I think this year you saw him deployed a lot against. He played against Winnipeg, LA, Dallas, Washington, Florida, Colorado, Vancouver, Vegas, Tampa Bay, Carolina. Like Carolina twice. He played a lot of solid teams this year. Um, and in all, I mean, he played some not so great teams too. But in all of that, finished the year with a 904 save percentage and a 2.64 goals allowed average, which that goals allowed average is slightly better than last year when he had a really great year. So like, I think he had a great year, and so again, as you pointed out, this is probably someone who teams are going to offer sheet if you don't lock him up. And so, yeah, maybe give him a bridge deal. Um, just pay him because, as you said, goalies are hard to find. And especially like this off season, the goalie market is yikes. So yeah, pay him for sure. Let's talk about Radek Faksa here, who is a UFA this summer, but was obviously sort of anchoring that fourth line, that identity line, the F of the WTF. He made 3.25 million this year. Would you? I mean, this is he was someone who we thought potentially could be traded away at the deadline if the season wasn't going so well on an expiring deal, just to sort of a depth piece. Is he someone that you think could return? Like, do you think the Blues will bring him back this offseason? Because I think this could very well be the type of move that they would want to make. Keep that fourth line intact. So, what's your take on Radek Faksa?
Fax is an interesting one for sure. I mean, that's the Blue center core right now is just so bad that maybe not bad is the right word, but is so thin that it's something that I'm definitely entertaining. His 3.25 million deal is not what he would be making most likely. It'd probably be closer to 4 million, I'd guess, which is still not that bad to be honest. It just depends on how they can manage everything else. And for me, I personally don't think that Faxa gets brought back. I think another team will see what he did and just outbid where the Blues are willing to go, because while the cap is going up, that doesn't mean that they can just be blowing money on, bottom six centers when they're trying to have this team get 5% better. I don't know that Faxa is the right allocation of those resources. And for me, the biggest thing is I think Oscar Sundqvist makes him entirely redundant. I think Sundqvist could exactly take on Faxa's role, and it doesn't have the same name, it doesn't have the same vibe as WTF, but I think Sonny could bring a very similar energy as what Radek Faksa did. And he's under contract for next year at $1.5 million. So I think there's just a lot of similarities there. I mean, they're the same size, pretty much same height, similar weight. They're both 31 years old. While Faxa you could see as a guy maybe with a little bit more to grow, Sundqvist is probably on the back end of his career. If we're looking at just next year, I think 4C is a place you can always sort of interchange out. And I think Sonny and Faxa are redundant, and one guy's under contract for next year. So I don't, if you can trade away Sonny and then get, whatever you can for Sundqvist. Sorry, a brain fart there. If you can trade away Sonny and then sign Faxa for maybe $3-4 million again, sure, that's probably a little bit better. I think most of us would say that Faxa is probably a little bit better of a player than Oscar Sundqvist, but Sundqvist is also kind of a St. Louis Blues legend at this point. So, and he's doing it for $3 million less or $2 million less. Three of what I'm projecting Faxa to get. So, me personally, I don't sign him. Do I think the Blues sign him? I really go back and forth on this one. I think I lean towards no, though. Not because the Blues don't want to. I just think a team with more flexibility is going to see what the Blues fourth line was able to do, how much Radek Faksa was a part of that, and think that we could do that if we take their center of that identity line and try and do that. Maybe a team like I don't know, New York or Pittsburgh, or I feel like Faxa could be a candidate for being outbid is my only sort of hang up there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And given some of Armstrong's comments at the press conference last week, like I wouldn't be surprised if the Blues don't bring him back. Army kind of talked about like he had a good conversation with Faxa, but wants to wait and see, sort of reflect and think about whether he's the type of player that they bring back. He also mentioned wanting to grow the young players and give them a shot. He mentioned he said he didn't want to disregard what he meant for them, and that that WTF line was a real identity line, as we said. So it seems like he just wants to wait and sort of, I guess, discuss as the summer goes on. Um, those comments sort of, to me, seem to indicate more along the lines of what you're saying, something, to the effect of he'll probably move on, or another team will snatch him up, or the Blues will just, maybe not think it's worth signing him back. But I think I disagree with you a little bit here. Just I think Faxa is someone that they should keep around. I think he's valuable enough to sign to a $3.5 million contract. I think if you get much beyond that, it's not really worth it. Um, but if you can bring him back, obviously he um, found a style of hockey on that line and on this team that was working. And so if you can bring him back, I'm sure he'd be interested in that for sure. Um, but just like the trust that Monty had in that line, the way that he utilized them, he started a couple of those late series playoff games with them. I think game six. I think they started game six, maybe even game seven, if I'm remembering correctly. It was the first line out there at the puck drop at the beginning of the game. So like, this is a player who anchored that line. And then again, the center market is pretty difficult. You can probably find a replacement for 4C on the center market this year. But it's not the market's not great, and so um, I just think the value he provides, um, both in the I guess untangibles as well as the tangibles, but more so probably the untangibles. I think it's worth signing him to just a few million, nothing crazy, but 3.35 or something around what he's making now, I think is worth holding on to him for. Do you have any other thoughts on him?
No, I think I said in my piece.
Cool. Um, why don't we talk now about a couple interesting fellas here? The the offer sheets boys, they will forever be paired together as Holloway and Broberg, as long as they're on the same team, I guess. Um, but these, I mean, two guys who we were excited that they were joining the Blues last summer. I remember our episodes reacting to the offer sheets move, and then the fact that um, both of them signed and stayed, and the Oilers didn't match on either of them. Feeling really excited about them, but my excitement was more long term, and thinking, wow, like these pieces could become down the line in a few years really important for this team. I did not expect this, where they came out and probably the two of them were two of the three most valuable skaters on this team, maybe two of the four most if you want to sort of split hairs, but like unreal season from both of these guys. They have become pieces of the Blues core moving forward. I hope they stick around for a long time. Um, Dylan Holloway probably played his way, if he can continue this performance starting next season, probably played his way onto the Olympics roster. So like, just fantastic season. I'm like, if he picks up where he left off, I think he will be playing for Team Canada next winter at the Olympics.
Oh, that's
Broberg,
gonna be so fun.
it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Broberg is, I hope he can make it onto Team Sweden down the line. It's probably a tougher one. Anyways, these are a couple players looking at their contracts. Um, where is this guy? Dylan Holloway. He's locked up for next season, but after that is an RFA. And Philip Broberg is the same thing, obviously. Holloway this season and next season, making around 2.3 million. Broberg around 4.6 million or so. I think they're due for an extension. I mean, right? Like they should. Have you seen enough to lock these guys up to like an 8-year contract?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you could
Yeah.
maybe I mean, the biggest thing for me is, do you know how old they are? This
They're
is
so
something that
young.
still shocks me.
They're
They're
so young.
23.
God.
Do you know who else is 23 in the league? We're talking about Dylan Cousins, Capo Caco, Jack Hughes, Spencer Knight. This is like the age range of players that we're talking about. 23. So you sign them for 8 years, even if the next 3 years, which they won't, end up as disappointment, that's still 5 years of a 26-year-old player entering their prime.
Hmm.
You can totally get a team to bite on that, which again is a future that isn't happening. I'm manifesting. But I've absolutely seen enough to lock them up for 8 years, both of them. I think there's plenty of tape there because there was plenty of tape last season, especially more so for a guy like Holloway. I think Broberg had to prove a little bit more, and I think he did prove a little bit more. But their season end numbers, especially like, and you saw how the team played when they were out, how the team missed an edge without them. I've seen plenty enough. I am so here for um, Holloway and Broberg. Absolutely, give them the matching Thomas and Kyrou contract right now, and
Yeah.
I will throw myself a party because that would be awesome.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, these are two players that are quickly becoming some of my favorite Blues. It's no secret that I'm a Philip Broberg stan, I guess. I would absolutely love for these guys to be around long term. 8 years for sure. I've seen enough. Lock them up. I don't even care. uh, and yeah, I think if I were the Blues, I'd be willing to give them those $8 million contracts, maybe like 8 million and some change. With the cap going up, I wouldn't be surprised if like Dylan Holloway, for instance, wants a little more, as Mike asked in the chat. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants a little more. I would be surprised if the Blues would pay him much more than that, just because the production that you're getting from him, at least so far, is a little bit. I mean, it's around what I mean points wise. It's around what Jordan Kyrou is giving you. So like, I'd be surprised if the Blues were willing to pay him like in the double digit millions. But that being said, like it could be worth it with the cap going up as much as it is over the next couple of years. These are players you build around for sure. Lock them up, hold on to them, do not let them go. Um, these are players that should be a part of the next core that wins you a Stanley Cup. Um, so I think Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen should do everything in their power to sign both of these guys to a long term extension. I'm hoping that a guy like Steen can convince Philip Broberg to stick around long term. Um, Broberg is like tougher to read. Like it seems like Holloway's really enjoying his time in St. Louis around Brayden Schenn and other guys like that. Like it seems like he is, and it seems like both of them have. But like Philip Broberg's a little bit more of a tough walnut. I feel like and sort of
Mm-hmm.
doesn't emote a whole lot. Uh, my guess is that he's really enjoying his time in St. Louis. I feel like that's fair to say, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Alex Steen, that Swedish connection, hopefully he can convince him to stick around long term. That would be huge. So um, yeah, great point from Mike. If Holloway goes out and scores like 40 goals next year, you're gonna have to pay him a lot more. So like go ahead, like these are two players that can
I
get to
dream.
that.
I dream of a 40-goal defense scorer in St. Louis again.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
is
I think.
Pronger the last guy to do it? I don't think Petro ever got to 40. I'm almost certain he never did.
Oh, you mean Broberg getting there?
Yeah. Oh, Holloway. I'm sorry. I'm
No, you're
sorry.
good. You're good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I can't think of anyone.
That's totally my bad.
You're good.
They're
Anyways,
so like it's like Monty and Army. Like they're
yeah,
so like
yeah.
in my head connected. I just
They're so linked. Yeah. But that's a great point from Mike is that if they go out there and have big seasons, which is completely within the realm of possibility, these are two players that can definitely do that. As you said, they're only 23 years old. Like they have yet to reach their prime, and so If this is what they're putting up at 23, oh my goodness, I'm excited to see what they can do in their prime. And so before they get there, lock them up so you can get a bit of a discount, because I'm feeling pretty confident that it will be a discount. Yeah. Anyways, any other Blues players that you wanna throw out there? Any like surprise extension candidates you wanna throw into the mix or anything like that?
Robert Thomas again.
Yeah.
Um,
Nathan Walker, you want him to stick around?
I mean, I could see them giving Torpo another year, perhaps. He did really like surprise me in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
I think for the most part, I mean, I would love it if we could keep Cam Fowler for another year or two, but I don't know if that's gonna happen given his age and Army's like trepidation based off of that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fowler is one who I would probably sign to like 2 years max. And I don't know if Fowler takes that, but you've been bitten by enough longer term, older defenseman contracts that I feel like it's. And if he continues like to or improves or continues to play the hockey he's playing, like maybe it's a different discussion. But like, um, I would step carefully
mhm.
if I were in Army's shoes. But anyways,
Yeah, exactly.
so we mentioned the top four defensemen are set comment from Doug Armstrong. The other one I wanted to mention to sort of close out our discussion here is he sort of, for the most part, said that he was like kind of wanting to play his cards, keep his cards close to the vest for now. He sort of said, if I commit to wanting to accomplish A, B, and C, and then come October I only accomplish A and B or just A, like people will be upset. And I think that's fair. But one thing that he did mention is the desire to bring in a 200-foot offensive forward. Um, that's sort of Holloway, right? Like that's what they were
Yeah.
missing in the playoffs.
Yep.
But
Yep.
Holloway's absence showed you like the Jenga tower that was this forward group. It was a great forward group when it was intact, and they were that top line was sort of in a groove. Whether it was Thomas, Neighbors, Buchnevich, or throw Snug in there or whatever, like that was a solid top line. The second line with Holloway in it, elite, like actually elite this year. When you look at some of the other forward lines in the league, third line, that 70s line or whatever, had some great flashes this year. And then the fourth line obviously was the WTF identity line. So like when Holloway moved out of the lineup when he was injured and everyone else had to shuffle up to or down to sort of account for that absence, we saw like it took them a little bit to get going, and they didn't look themselves without Holloway. And I think if you're the Blues, you want to prevent that from happening, because injuries are going to happen. That's just hockey. That's just sports. They're going to happen throughout the course of an 82 game season and into the playoffs if you get there. And so it seems like they want to be cautious not to let that happen again. That's sort of the main thing the main way that I interpreted that comment. But 200-foot offensive forward, like what is your take on that comment? If you want to throw out a couple names, you can. This will probably be a discussion that we have more intentionally and more, I guess, speculatively in a future episode. Maybe next episode we'll sort of talk about some potential candidates that we think could fill that role. Yeah, like what's your take on the 200-foot offensive forward line from Army there?
To me, 200-foot forward is speed, 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 and the ability to play defense off of that speed. But it's really the ability to create and profit off of rush chances, which comes from speed. So I think this is, yeah, like you said, another Holloway would be great, but I doubt they get someone of Holloway's caliber. But if you can get, a third line winger to play a similar role to Holloway, just at a lower skill ceiling, yeah, like you said, I don't really have necessarily any ideas in mind as of right now, but I think this is, to me, this sounded like well, I don't know, actually. I don't want to speculate too much. This could have been a depth piece, but it also could have been that that, one sort of missing piece that they've been looking for a year and a half now to put this roster over the edge. But I think they identified, because another thing Army said earlier in the press conference was that speed was a big thing that they brought in, that they thought that Holloway and Broberg could be two guys who really helped this team out because of the speed edge that they brought. So I am thinking, to me, that they're going to be looking for a defensive speedy forward, and that is a great piece to have. Sort of like a Toropchenko type at the low end, up to whatever comparison you want for speed and defense. I mean, we're getting Mitch Marner in the chat. I mean, for $15 million, sure, maybe it is Mitch Marner, but to me it's speed and defense is what they're going to be targeting, and I think that is the right way. If you look at the ways that they won on the margins this year, it was from the defense, from the forwards. And so if you can, if losing guys like Faxa potentially, or potentially having, if Walker or Toropchenko or Matthew Joseph or whatever regress, that you can have another option there. I totally think that that's a guy that, or that's a style that they'll target.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're probably looking for something a little better than Matthew Joseph, because he sort of fits that mold too, of speedy, defensive. You've sort of got like these tiers of Toropchenko as that low end. He is fast and more defensively minded. Although Torpo on the forecheck is fun to watch.
6'6"
Matthew,
Russians. Enough said.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Matthew Joseph is sort of that middle tier, and then Holloway was sort of a top tier example of that, and at least on the Blues this season. So, excuse me. I would hope that Army is sort of talking about or thinking about above that Matthew Joseph line, someone that can potentially play on the second line or better, maybe like middle six or top six type of forward. But I agree, like speed and defense, that's something that they were thinking about last offseason as well. Bringing in Holloway, he was fast. Joseph is fast. Like that was something that they were looking to address last offseason. I think they did a decent job of that this year, and we sort of saw the results of that. But yeah, I wouldn't hate it at all if they could bring in a middle six sort of level guy for that role. I would love it even more if they took an eye at sort of the top of the market with, I don't know if it's Marner necessarily. I doubt they're winning the Marner sweepstakes this summer when he becomes a UFA, but like, I don't know, maybe it's Ehlers or something like that, because he sure is fast. Anyways, well,
That's a fun. Ooh.
Right. Wouldn't that be cool? This is a discussion for probably our next episode, but this is I think the fact, more so than anything, the fact that Doug Armstrong pointed out that goal of trying to bring that in, like, that tells me he's pretty serious about it. That tells me that that's going to be a priority for them this offseason. They have every intention of starting the season in October having accomplished that. I don't think he would have come out and said that right out of the gate at the end of season press conference if that wasn't a like up there priority for the Blues right now. And so that's something that I'm obviously looking for them to accomplish this season, or this off season rather. Yeah. Any other key players or positions or anything that you think they should be looking to accomplish this summer?
Not in terms of their own guys. I think it's going to be a summer of pretty much locking guys up. So Holloway, Broberg, Hofer, making a decision on Faxa, Sundqvist, etc. So I think a lot of this offseason is going to be driven. I know we went a little long today, but I think it's important because I think a lot of this offseason is going to be driven by the internal decisions they make before they go out and acquire players.
For sure. Yeah, you got to take care of your own housekeeping before you can or you should anyway, before you can look on the trade market or the free agent market. So with the cap going up, I'm hoping that they'll be a little more active in free agency than they have in recent years. Um, Maybe bringing in a mid-tier to upper-tier kind of guy. Uh, we will hopefully talk about that probably next episode. If not then definitely sometime really soon. We'll do some more speculation about the offseason and some potential players that the Blues could bring in. So definitely stay tuned for that, because that's sort of where it gets fun, when you sort of wade into the gray area of which top players can they bring in, or could they actually make this happen. So we'll definitely reserve some time to have that discussion very, very soon. So stay tuned for that, as well as the rest of our off-season content. Draft is coming up at the end of June, and so we're going to be doing a lot of draft preview stuff, talking about the state of the Blues prospect system. What do they need? Where do they need to focus on in this year's draft? And then with where they're picking in the draft, which players do we think they can get? Which players do we think are within reach for them? Will they trade up? All that kind of stuff. We'll talk about draft coverage very, very soon, hopefully with some special guests as well. And then, yeah, all kinds of off-season stuff, free agency, trade rumors, all that great stuff. We will continue to talk about all summer long, as well as reflecting on the incredible season that we just watched. So if you want to stay tuned for all of that, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit that button. That's really the best way to help us out, as well as liking this video, follow, rating, and reviewing the podcast wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so be sure to drop a review and a rating there. That's another great way to help us. So we love to read those, love to see those. And then we're also on socials at Note News Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So be sure to follow us on all those great platforms. But we will see you next time. Thanks for joining for this lengthy edition of Note News. And as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.